All right, so you ready to get a little weird today? We're going deep on The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And yeah, you might be thinking, oh, that one guy turns into a bug, got it. But there's a reason this story is still messing with people's heads like a century later. Trust me, it's way more than just a monster story. Kafka just throws you right in. No explanations. Just bam. Gregor Samsa wakes up a horrible vermin.
Yeah, and it's that lack of explanation that I think gets under your skin, right?
Totally.
Kafka doesn't care about the why. He wants us to deal with the how. Like, how do we react to something totally insane? How do the people we love react?
And Gregor's first reaction is hilarious. He's like more worried about being late for work than the fact that he's sprouted like 6 extra legs.
It's that dark humor, right?
Yeah.
Classic Kafka. Makes you laugh, but then you kind of want to throw up a little bit at the same time. He's a master at that.
And his family, at first, they seem like pretty concerned. But that concern, like, devolves into something really disturbing.
It's almost like they're going through the stages of grief, but in this totally messed up Kafka-esque way.
Right.
The mom's love turns into fear. His sister, she tried to take care of him, but eventually she just can't anymore.
And then there's the dad. His reaction is just straight up chilling. It's like Kafka saying even a loving father can become like this oppressive figure because of all the pressure from society.
Exactly. Gregor, in his new buggy state, he completely disrupts their perfect little world. All their ideas of what's normal and the dad's violence, it's like it shows how society just wants to get rid of anything that doesn't fit in.
Which brings us to isolation, this huge theme in the story. Gregor can't talk. Nobody can understand him. He's literally stuck in his room.
It's like a physical version of what so many of us feel, right? Like you're not being heard or seen.
For sure.
In the way Kafka writes these miscommunications, it's like it just makes the conflict worse. It pushes Gregor deeper and deeper into this isolation.
Like when he's trying to explain himself to his boss. Remember that scene?
Oh, and the scene with the picture. It's heartbreaking. That picture's like the last piece of his humanity, his past.
Right.
And even that causes problems.
Well, and speaking of that picture, the whole book is just overflowing with symbols. And people have been debating what they mean for, like, ever. It's like one of those puzzle boxes. Every symbol gives you this little peek into a different side of what Gregor is going through.
Absolutely. And Kafka was a master of using the setting to show what's going on inside a character's head.
Right.
So like Gregor's room, it becomes this mirror of his isolation.
Totally.
Like he's getting more and more separated from everyone.
It's like the room itself is going through its own metamorphosis.
Right.
Becoming less human.
Right.
As Gregor does.
Less and less human.
But it's not just the room, right?
Yeah.
His senses change too.
Yeah.
Things he used to love, they become disgusting.
Yeah.
And then, like, hanging from the ceiling, he actually starts to like it.
It's so interesting how Kafka explores this idea of perception changing. Gregor's literally experiencing the world in a totally new way. It makes you wonder, like, how much of what we think is real is just because of the way we see things.
Right.
You know?
Totally.
It all comes back to this question of, like, who is Gregor now? Is he still the guy he was before?
Yeah.
Just trapped inside this, like, nightmare bug body.
Right. The question that hangs over the whole story.
Right.
I think even Gregor is not sure.
Right.
He keeps thinking about his old life, his job, his family. But then at the same time, he's starting to like being a bug, crawling on walls, hiding in the dark.
He's caught between these two worlds.
Yeah.
Doesn't belong to either one.
Exactly. And it's not just him who's changing.
Right.
His transformation, it makes everyone else have to figure out who they are now, too.
Yeah, like the dad,
Yeah.
he was all weak and helpless before.
Right.
Now he's the one bringing home the bacon again. And she was just a kid. Now she's got to take care of everyone.
It's like Kafka showing us how even when something horrible happens, like there's still these power shifts people have to adapt.
Exactly. Like one little thing can turn a whole family upside down.
For sure. It's like their roles are being rewritten or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, speaking of rewriting, let's talk about the way Kafka writes. It's so simple, but so powerful.
Too deceptive, right?
Totally. He describes all this crazy stuff like it's no big deal.
Like, oh, your son woke up a giant cockroach.
I know, right?
Happens every Tuesday.
Exactly. But he uses these really small details.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right there. You can hear the scratching, smell the gross food in his room. And he keeps using the same phrases over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, the repetition.
It's like Gregor's stuck in this cycle of misery that never ends.
The language itself is like transforming.
Yeah.
Along with Gregor. Like mirroring that breakdown of communication.
You know, we can't really avoid talking about the ending. but I don't want to spoil it for our
Yeah.
listener.
Yeah.
But it's one of those endings people argue about forever.
Mhm.
Like you finish the book and you feel kind of sick,
Mm.
like you just had a bad dream.
Kafka wouldn't have it any other way.
I know. He never wants to give you easy answers, just make you think.
Right.
Long after you're done reading.
Absolutely.
It's not a happy ending, but there is this weird kind of freedom in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Gregor finally escapes all the pressure and expectations
It's a release.
when he dies.
A release.
What do you think our listeners going to think?
I bet it'll depend on what they've been through themselves, how they see things.
That's the thing about Kafka.
Yeah.
He gives you enough to get your brain working. But he never tells you what to think.
Makes you question. Makes you feel. I love that.
All right, time for the big question we always ask. So what if?
Here we go.
What if Gregor woke up as something else? Not a bug. Would everything be different?
Would his family have freaked out so much?
Right. Would society have been okay with it?
Or is there just something about the whole idea of metamorphosis itself, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that just makes people afraid?
Like people just can't handle it.
Right. Like, what if he woke up a beautiful butterfly? Would that have changed
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
Or would he still have ended up the same way, just with prettier wings?
It makes you think about how we treat people who are different, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the big things Kafka was trying to make us think about.
Yeah.
Like how we treat people who aren't like us. What we owe to people who are hurting. People who just want to be understood.
It's kind of a bummer topic,
It is heavy.
but really important.
Yeah.
And I think the metamorphosis, for as dark and strange as it is,
Mm-hmm.
it has this little bit of hope in it.
I agree. You see these little moments of beauty, of tenderness. Like, even with all the awful stuff, there's still something good there, something worth fighting for,
Yeah.
something to hold on to.
Like he's saying, hey, it's easy to just ignore stuff that's weird or different,
Yeah.
but it's when we get uncomfortable that
Right.
we really learn something.
And maybe he's also saying that, like, who we are isn't set in stone. You know, it's always changing, depending on what happens to us, who's around us, the whole world, really. We're all changing all the time.
Right.
For good or bad. The real question is, like, how do we deal with that change when it's us or someone else?
So what's the takeaway for everyone listening? The metamorphosis. It's not just some random bug story. It's about who we are, about family, about how society messes with us.
Yeah.
It's about being human, even when it gets super freaky.
And even though it's kind of disturbing, there's this hopeful side, too.
Yeah.
Even in the ending with Gregor dying, it's like he's free.
Yeah.
Like something bigger is happening.
Yeah.
It reminds you that love and compassion, like, they matter. And that trying to find meaning when everything's crazy, that matters, too.
Yeah. Even with all the awful stuff, Kafka shows us that there's something human that connects everyone. That's why it still hits so hard after all these years.
It makes you look at the bad stuff in yourself, in the world. But it also reminds you that being human is beautiful.
Yeah.
Even when it's messed up and weird.
All right. That's our deep dive on Kafka's The Metamorphosis. Hopefully we gave you lots to think about.
Yeah.
Maybe even freaked you out a little.
Just a little existential dread.
But we really hope you see how powerful literature is,
Yeah.
how it can challenge us, make us better, maybe even change us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.